Hello, hello. We're gonna start in 1 second, just waiting for my guest to come in. Hi, guys. Oh, here she is. Wonderful. So, good morning, everyone. I invited a very special friend today, waiting for her to connect. Let me just. What might actually work with that? So, we're going to talk about interior design, and not really interior design, about visual design. Olga Neiman, she was on the covers of Elle Style, Vogue with her work. She's an amazing stylist for living space, for sets, for cinema, for theater. We're waiting for her to connect. Let me see. Request. Yes. One way or another, we're going to connect.
Ah,
Yes. Yes. Good
here
morning.
we go. Here we go. Sorry, this is my first Instagram live.
No worries. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Olga Neiman.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen.
As I said, you're not really interior design. You're a visual designer. Everything that you can visualize, you can make it, you can materialize it, actually. So that's what you're pretty much work. You've been working on the sets of the movies, theater. You've been doing tons of editorials. So how did it all started for you? How did you came into that? How did you come up with the idea to become this creator of visual reality?
Well, when I was like a child, like a 10, 11, I would spend hours in the library looking at interior design books. And I was obsessed with it. I was obsessed with spaces and interiors. And I never thought that that could possibly be a career for me because I was a Russian immigrant and I had to be a doctor, lawyer, or accountant.
Right.
There were
Something
three options.
comfortable.
I didn't think that it would possibly be for me. But then after college, I just took the leap and I told my parents I was moving to New York. And I started working in magazines, and that's what really started it for me. I got a job at House Beautiful magazine, and I was an assistant, and I worked with amazing people, and I met like the most amazing interior designers in the world and amazing editors, and just was learning. So we would do shoots, we would kind of construct stories when we worked with advertising, and we would do like product shoots where we would create rooms, the editors. And the editors were like the best interior designers. They were so talented. And I just learned. And I worked there for 5 years. And then at the end, one of my pieces, one of the things I designed was on the cover of the magazine, which was a big coup for me because I was only like 25 years old. And then I decided that, I wanted more. I wanted more conceptual work. So I went to London to get my master's degree in set design and in installation art.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that and came back. And then I really had a large visual portfolio. So I could work with editorial. I could do theater. I could do any kind of conceptual, because of the art background, weave art into the commercial world through spaces and through storytelling in the commercial world. And that has been really fun. The more conceptual, the better for me, because I really bring it to town with art and cinematic references and weave all these elements together. And that's what's most exciting.
how the process itself works for you? Do you like visualize first? You draw? You put some pieces together? Maybe you use Play-Doh? I don't know. What is your process?
You know, the way it depends on what client. It depends on how realistic or how abstract the work is. Some with a realistic work, it just comes to me like I see, um, like when I go into a space, the space talks to me. I guess that's how you would say it. So if there's a space chosen for the location as a site-specific designer, and I'm trained in site-specific design from the art practice, I look at it and I start seeing what are the quirks of the space. What's the kind of wabi-sabi? What's the abnormality? Where's the interest in the space? And I play to accentuate that.
What is
So
important for you? Is it light, color? What inspires you the
it's
most?
all of it. It's
Together?
energy. I'll tell you what it is. It's communication of energy. And I didn't have the words for that when I was younger. You know, it's kind of coming to me now as I mature into like my spiritual practice, which comes in with my artistic practice. But I weave beauty and energy together. That's kind of how, and I use color as my palette, shape. Sculpture is very important to me, like sculptural elements within the space. Also the way a body moves through the space, and this comes through theater. So I look at how, when people come in, how do they feel when they walk right in the door? What's the energy of that? And then how do they feel when they walk 5 steps up? What do they see? Like, what is the art? And I kind of really, because I worked in time-based theater, so I kind of see the body moving through the space in time. Time is a very important element for me. I work very abstractly. It's interesting. And it's really about the body's relationship with the space as it moves through time into the space. And then I weave in different like colors that come in, different patterns, different sculptures. I love surprise. I love the element of surprise. I love when you turn a corner, it's a, like, I love what that does to the body, you know, to my body.
What's very interesting? You were spiritual, sensible towards the energy since you were child, or it developed while you were working with the space?
I think it was since I was a child, but I didn't have the language for it. Like it was very, you know, when you don't have the language for something, you don't, like no one spoke of it, so I didn't develop it. It was something that was probably there. I'd have to really think it through. When I first started becoming aware of it, I was more in my mid-20s. You know, when I designed that shoot that was on the cover of House Beautiful, it was, the article was "What's Glamour Now?" And I didn't want to do the typical Hollywood glamour. So I kind of, that's when I really projected into the future. And at that point I wasn't meditating and I wasn't doing this kind of travel, like download stuff that I do now, of like really seeing into the future, really projecting through timelines, you know. And this is how I see design now. But I was like, I just kind of felt like, how do I show glamour in a way that's not typical, that's not expected, but it still has the feeling of glamour, and but very modern, you know, not something nostalgic. I didn't want nostalgic glamour, you know, because that's easy. I wanted to really weave something that was new and surprise. I love surprise.
So how did you achieve it? It's so interesting.
Like it started, I wish I had the cover. In fact, I could send it to you. I don't have that cover. I wish I could show it to you.
I'll post it after.
Yeah, I'll send you that
like
cover.
with the lights or objects?
No, it was with objects. It was with color, a lot of strong color. So there was a big bright yellow sofa and a lot of color, a lot of like, it wasn't what you would expect to be glamour because it was very modern. And but at the same time it had this kind of almost Miami kind of, it was in 1999 that I did it, you know. And it's funny because my friend who's an editor now, she was an editor of like Elle Decor and Veranda, and she was like, wow, it's still fresh. That cover that you did 20 20 years ago. It's still, she was saying to me recently, it's still relevant. You know, it's not dated. It doesn't look dated, which I think I was kind of pulling in from like kind of different timelines, but I didn't know it then. You know, you just kind of do what you do. You don't feel yourself.
What is your favorite era? What era inspires you the most?
You know, it's not for me. I love everything. What I love is the clash of different eras. That's what I love. It's never one thing. It's always two things, and they're always opposite. That's how I work in duality. It's always how the relationship, and that's my Tantra background, you know? But it's always been that, even before I got into Tantra. It was always the relationship of two opposites and how they dance and the juxtaposition. And that is hot for me in design. That is what's sexy. Like, it's not just one thing, it's two things, and how they make love with one another in a room, you know? It's like, so I would take like a Marie Antoinette chair and put it with something, the thing that you would least expect, you know, brutalism, 1970s, you know, and how they dance and how they make love. Like, I want to see that, you know, I want to see that dance. So for me, it's always, and the art always comes in, and it always has to be different. It always has to be unexpected. It can't be classic. I can't do classic because other people do it so beautifully. Why do it? Why should I do it? You know, I only can do what I do well, which is the mix, the mash, the contrast, the rough but sexy kind of togetherness.
Tell me, it seems to me that design, what you're doing, it's a reflection of your inside world. Tell me if I'm wrong. So where are you finding your key? Where is your spirituality coming from? What is it all about? I already understood that sexual things, sensible things is important for you.
Yeah.
So,
the masculine and the feminine. So there's, you know, it's always a developing thing. And I wouldn't have said that even 2 years ago, even a year ago, I wouldn't have described it like that. You know, I'm just kind of coming into that as I develop. It was always just juxtaposition that was interesting to me. And now the more masculine and feminine as I go into, you know, Indian mysticism and tantric work. But before I didn't study that. It was more about, you know, meditation, which also has the masculine and the feminine. It's always that is always there. And I guess I was always in it, but I never languaged it again.
I love that you're not making it unisex. You're not merging. You're really like playing around,
mixing. It's always the mix. It's so, I mean, like, I'm just showing you my necklaces. It's always the mix of opposing elements, and that's that. To me, that's what's interesting.
Fantastic. Tell me about your spiritual journey. I know that you went to see different shamans, healers. So you were intrigued by this side of the human nature, I would say. And I know that you use it in your work. You known for making those living sacred spaces. Can you tell me about that, please?
So, I mean, my spiritual work started really with, like in graduate school, I was writing my graduate thesis. And as I was writing, I think I was like channeling something, because what came out is really a lot of ideas of like, there's no objective reality. There's like about subjective, like there was like stuff that came out of me that I would like later read in spiritual books, but I had never studied spirituality or even any kind of religion. I didn't grow up with that, you know, Soviet, like very like practical world. So there was like stuff pouring out of me for my master's thesis, and I was writing for 3 months, and it was about illusion and like what illusion was and what reality was. And because I was doing this piece on Dostoevsky, a theater piece on the double, Dostoevsky's The Double. And then I kind of came to the conclusion that reality is what you make of. There's no objective reality. It's a subjective reality. There's no objectivity. Like after, you know, a lot of writing, I came to that. And then when I returned to New York, I just kind of had a spiritual download one night, like something opened for me. And like I started just asking questions, and I felt like I had access to a wider degree of information that I ever had. And I was shocked because I didn't have language for this. This isn't the world that I was in. You know, I was in the design world, in the art world. I didn't know this stuff. So somehow I got like, and then I was flying for about 3 months afterwards, like flying, you know, I was like, it felt like I was on drugs, but I had never really done drugs before. Like I wasn't into that. And then I got into the Burning Man scene and started like opening up into all kinds of experiences. I met shamans. I started working with plant medicine. I started working with meditation. I started just opening up to a wider range of ideas than I was exposed to as like by my family or my circumstance. And it blew my mind. And that's when I started like seeing visions and, you know, like like my third eye opened basically. Mm-hmm. And it's not open all the time. Like sometimes it opens, sometimes it closes. But then I started a regular meditation practice because the pain of it closing and not being able to access that world was very painful to me. And I didn't know what was the doorway? I couldn't find it. Sometimes I was like, I haven't had access in a year. I couldn't get back in, and it was painful. And I was like, I need regular access at will. I want to like go through the door to the other side, you know, when I need to. So I started first working with plants, and then I would get access, but then it would close back down again. And I didn't want to develop a habit. So then I was like, okay, I need to do meditation. And that was the thing, a regular meditation practice. So that's my practice, and yoga and sound meditation, all kinds of different ways. But I just need to get through the door, you know, because that's where the information is. And I want the information.
How did you start using it in your work?
At first, I didn't know how. Like at first, I kept it very separate, or I thought I did. You know, I didn't want to tell anyone in my work about my spiritual life. I didn't want to be thought of as like crazy or like too eccentric. Even though in the design world it was all kind of okay, but still, I didn't know how to talk about this, you know? So first it was more like informed by the art, but it was always informed by time. There was always the element of the surreal in my work, always. And that desire for God, I guess, for the emanation, for the spirit, like to come through the work. There was always that love and that desire was always coming through. Whenever, the more the client would allow it, the more I was like, ah. And the client that I would always want would be the ones that would give me that opportunity. And not all of them did. And a lot of them, it was corporate, you know, it was like West Elm catalogs, CB2 catalogs. They didn't want that stuff. Like, or I didn't ask, so I don't want to be unfair to them. I never asked. I didn't say, do you want spirit to be coming through? Again, it was like, it was a little embarrassing. I didn't know how to speak.
Layers. Do you want some layers?
Yeah, they kind of hired me for my style.
Right.
Yeah, I never spoke about it. You know, they hired me for my style, for my taste. And I would give them my taste to the best of my ability. And of course, I would bring that in as much as I could, but not full on, because I didn't really know how to give that full on. I wasn't brave enough, I would say. But now, and especially with COVID, you know, like I realize life is short, you know, like I have to be all in. I want to give myself like fully. I don't want to like hold back.
You want to breathe.
The juiciest parts of myself, really, you know, because I think that someone won't accept it, you know, so I want to like give full. So now I weave it, now I speak to it. And this is actually one of the first interviews where I'm really fully speaking to it.
This is coming out.
Yeah, because it's like life is short. That's what I realized through the COVID thing. You don't know. You just don't know when it's done. So like give yourself 100%.
I think COVID was a really positive thing from definitely from this point of view, that it was some kind of a full stop for a lot of people, for most of the people. We're finally able to stop and analyze what we did before, how we want to continue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. It was such a gift for me, but at the beginning, I fought it. I hated it, you know, and now, only now looking back, look back and I see the gift that it was.
Absolutely. Can you tell me a little bit about basics, how you create sacred place, how you work? How, I do understand probably it depends on the client and depends on the person who you work for. So in order to make the space, like to make it reality, some kind of vision, some kind of idea of someone who's saying like, I want to live in a place where I will feel good, I will feel relaxed, I will feel full of energy, I will feel inspired. How is there any basics like that we can recommend for people who's listening to us, you know, from what to start?
You know, it starts from really seeing yourself, really being able to come into your space with fresh eyes. Because we all, including me, we all have our habits, we all have our wiring, and we all have the things that we resign ourselves to, you know, like all the clutter or whatever, the old things that are broken that we just never get around to fixing, or like just living in a space that reflects who we are now, but not reflecting the potential of us. So when I walk in, I see the potential. I do an energetic reading of the person, and I do an energetic reading of the space, and I see within their budget, within what they have to spend, how can I really get it to the highest level within the practicals. So I think that's what I would recommend. Like, seeing the space with fresh eyes. And if it's hard for you to come and get a friend or someone that you trust to just come in and say, okay, someone whose tastes you like, someone who's dresses well or whatever, to come in and say, okay, what do you feel about this space? What do you feel about me? If you didn't know I live in this space, what do you feel about the person that lives in this space? What would you change about my space? It's good to get an outside perspective. You know, like for example, with me, like the nanny that works for me, I have an amazing relationship with her, and she's always giving me reflections like that I need to level up, like that I need to, like, even with like me, and then this is my job, and she's like, no, you could do better here, you could do, you know. And it's invaluable to me because she's very organized in a way that I'm not organized. She's very grounded in a way that I tend to fly, and sometimes I'll forget to ground. And she's very earthy, so she will say like, no, this is not organized, this is not good. And I'm like, okay, thank you. And that's what I would recommend to someone. Get a friend, get someone else, and see yourself. And it starts from seeing yourself, and then it starts after that is like, what do you need to get rid of? What's not serving you anymore? And I'm not talking for corporate clients, I'm talking just for people in their homes. How to create a sacred space within your home for yourself, because we're stuck in our homes right now. It's important. So it's like, get rid of stuff. If you're a minimalist, this doesn't apply to you, but most of us aren't. Most of us, like, what's broken? What reminds you? What's like old? What's like holding you and anchoring you to the past that doesn't serve you anymore? Like, really start looking at that stuff. Can you give that stuff away to create space? Like, empty space is a good thing. We're all scared of empty space because it's empty, you know? But this is how, like, seeds grow. This is what you plant into the empty space. And then you start planting new things with intention. And that's what I say to my clients. What's the intention? What's the goal? Where are you in 2 years? Where do you see yourself? Start designing for that person who, you know, in 2 years, 2022. Who are you there? What are you doing? Ideally, what's your intention? What's your love? What does your heart want for you? You know, and start designing
Then
for
you
that
make
person.
a list or something.
I mean, usually I speak with them about it. I feel into it,
Mhm.
you know, and then I start, like, I sense them, who they are. I feel what's blocking them. I feel the blocks. And this is the energetic read, which we all do on everyone all the time. You know, you feel where the person's like, couldn't take a little like movement adjustment. So then, and I start then feeling into the potential. So it's not really a list. It's more of like a feeling that I get. But how would a person, yeah, they can write it. If I was recommending it to someone that's just not working with me, that's doing their own thing, write it out. Who do you want to be in 2 years? Like, write it, because writing actually puts it into 3D form. It goes from thought to word. And
To
that's like,
materialize
that's
things.
the process of creation, thought to word, you know,
Because a
and
lot of
then
people
from word into the material world. So this is how it goes. Thought, like, this is my imaginings of myself in 2 years. Word, write it down. This is who I hope myself to be. This is the feeling. And then create it in your space. And then your body starts tuning like a piano tuner, you know, to that space until it's a tune. And then there's an attunement, and then your body starts absorbing that energy. And that's how it starts to move.
Because the problem today, a lot of people, they just see something on sale, they buying it, they bringing the piece home, and they like, okay, I'm gonna build my home around this piece. Like, really? And then you don't know
Yeah,
what it is.
I do that with shoes all the
Stick,
time, or
stick,
we used to.
stick to the list, I would say. What are
Stick
your
to the list. Yeah, yeah. Keep yourself structured. That's
Mhm.
important. That's why it's good to work with someone. You know, it's good to work with someone who's your friend. Like, if you don't have the money to hire someone like me or consultant, or, you know, do it with your friend.
Right?
You know, you could do a trade with one another's apartments, you know, or houses, of like, do one room at a time, you know, just to like kind of get the feeling
Right.
of, do
Exactly.
your
I did
most
one.
important room. If you want a relationship in your life, do your bedroom. If you want more health in your life, your bathroom, your kitchen. If you want more like kind of, it's more outer things like career, do your living room, your dining room, the places where you invite people in. You know, you start really seeing the energetics of your space, of how it speaks to you.
It's like psychological therapy. You know what they do? They usually breaking you down to the little detailing, trying to find the place, the thing that can be fixed. And if you still cannot fix that,
Yeah.
then you go in smaller piece. So in that case, it's pretty much the same. You start from little place, from little space, and you just start decorating it. And then once you have nicely space that speaks to you, which is you, so you're probably going to go more and more. We have question: what is the most important element of the bedroom?
The bed. um, so the way I see it is, the bed is where you spend actually the majority of your time. Like, because you're not in any one place. Maybe your bed and your desk chair, you know, if you work at your computer. Those are the two spots that you spend the majority of your time. So the two most important elements of the bed are the headboard, or the structure of the bed. So I don't tend to like metal headboards, and I don't tend to like things that you can't lean into. I feel like a headboard needs to support you. It needs to be soft. It needs to be sensual. It needs to hold you. It needs to, you want to feel like you could lean into it, especially for, and I speak to this for women who want to get into relationship. Like, you want that masculine element. Like, you want to lean back and be held in your bed. You know, that's a very good symbolism. So I always tend to like upholstered beds or wooden bed. Metal bed with scrolls, not so much. They're beautiful to look at. They're beautiful, but they're not your, unless you create a system of pillows, which you could do. I mean, so there's always ways around everything, you know, but it's the metal beds I find problematic personally. So the bed is one element, and then the sheets. The sheets are important. So like they have to be soft. They have to
Color?
like any color, really. You know, the color doesn't matter. I mean, I've never really, although you could have black sheets. I don't know. I've never done it. I tend to like white creams, taupes, neutrals with hits of color.
Warm.
That's what I tend to like. But you know, honestly, you can have any thematic and make it work. If you have black sheets, for example, some people might want that. You can do like bright white pillows and color, and it could look really sexy. You could embrace your dark side. Maybe that's what you want in your life, you know? And everything has its kind of symbol. You're doing something for a reason. So the reason isn't only beauty, and that's a big reason. Beauty is a lot. But then there's the energetic reason. Like, what are you saying with this? What are you really, what's the message that you're speaking to the universe? I want more of this. I want to bring this energy into my field. So you think about those things when you're designing, or I do. It's very important.
What are your favorite tools? Is it light, or is it little details, little paintings, furniture? What are you like the most to work with?
I mean, it's not even, it's more about, it's always the harmony of everything for me. It's never like any one thing. Like, it's always a harmony. It's like, what's your favorite facial feature? You know, everyone says, of course, it's the eyes, but then like, it's the harmony of the whole face, you know? It's the same. Like, light definitely is important. So you always have to consider it. And I never like just recessed lighting, putting that on and that being the only lighting you have in the room. And too many people do that. They have recessed lighting. We have it. I see it behind you. I mean, I have my can lights in the place that I'm renting. And I feel like lighting has to happen at all levels. So you have to have lighting that's on the table level, at the eye level with floor lamps, on the floor level with lamps that are actually on the floor. They're these cool like round lamps. So you could do different lighting designs for different moods and different purposes. I come from theater. So for me, it's all theater. You know, it's like sometimes you want low lighting that comes from the floor. You want to feel grounded. There's an energy that comes from there. Sometimes you want like a big chandelier and that's the only light. Sometimes you want like a symphony of all the different lights. You know, so it's always like the harmony for me. And then of course color, of course shape, texture, and space. Like I could go on and on. It's hard to distill it. But it's really the harmony. It's how things speak to one another. It's never any one thing in isolation. It's how the features of the face combine into the face.
Right.
You know, it's the same.
And I love how you said it should be a reflection of yourself. It's very, very important, because a lot of people, they just take magazine and they say, oh, I want exactly the same thing. But then are you going to be happy in it? Is it you?
Yeah.
They love something with their eyes, but that's really you.
Yeah. And it's that translation. And there's so many times that on my Pinterest board is full of other people's work that I'm like, I like the way they hung the art, or I like the combination of their colors. And I think it's great to be inspired by a lot of people's work, by a lot of homes out there. But it's like, then how do you weave it with yourself? And that becomes the interesting dance. You know, how do you weave it with who you are and what you want and where you're going? What you're wanting more of in your life. I think designing from that place is a very powerful message into the universe, into the creation space.
So
like, this is what I want.
There, yes.
What sign am I born under? I'm a Libra. Someone asked.
Oh, right, of course.
Yeah, beauty, all beauty, always beauty and love, romance, the sensual thing. That's Libra.
Very interesting. Do you believe in that?
Oh, yeah.
Horoscopes?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think of like, I did it for a while. Like I always had problems because I have twins actually, and they're born on the same day, but they're very different people. So there's always that, I always have a note of skepticism. I never dive into things without really kind of doing the testing because I come from a science background. I did all pre-med in college, so I have that science background. I'm like, I'm not going to believe in something until I really test it. So with this, like, it's worked for me, like being aware. It's like the tides and the moon. The moon influences the tides. The moon influences the waters in our body as women, you know? So I feel like if the moon influences, the planets probably do too.
For sure. For sure. No doubt about it. What is next for you? Any plans?
I have a lot of plans. So I'm moving more into.
Amazing. That's why I'm so curious to hear what is in your.
Well, my rent where we just bought a piece of land, my husband and I, and he's designing. We're both designing a house. So he's architecting it, and I'm designing it. So we're kind of starting to do that, and we want to start like buying ranch houses from the 1970s, because this is what we bought, like an ugly little ranch house, and we're de-ranchifying them and making, because there's so many and nobody wants them. And so
where
it's
is
like
that?
We live in upstate New York. It's like an hour north of New York City. It's in a town called Garrison, New York. That's where we live. It's next to the Hudson River. So it's a beautiful piece of land with a pond in the back and an ugly 1970s small ranch house. And I was walking around a lot of houses, and I just kept thinking, like, even the $1 million houses, which we were like, okay, let's dream, let's look at this. And then I was like, I still want to change everything, so, because I didn't like any
what's
of
the
them.
point?
Yeah, so I was like, let's just buy a cheap little house and on a nice piece of land and redo it ourselves. And we started to do it, and he came up with an amazing design. And I was like, oh my God.
Is it interior design as well, or architect?
No, he's just a guy who can do anything. He's just a Renaissance man. Yeah, so he taught himself an architectural program, and he knows about design and he knows about architecture. And he taught himself an architectural program and started architecting it. And then I showed it to a bunch of architects that I work with, and I work with a lot of architects for my work. And it was like, I think this is good. Is this good? And they were like, yeah, this is good. I was like, okay, this is good. This is good. Because I'm so nervous with architecture. Like, I know the finished product and how that looks, but I have never architected a house, like a whole house, and it's scary. So we're doing it. And if it goes well, we want to start buying cheap 1970s, 1960s little ugly ranches and making them modern and accessible and sexy and good, you know, something that people now want to live in, because there's a lot of them around, and they're on beautiful pieces of land here in upstate New York, and I bet in California too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right.
You know that people, that's what they want. They don't want to. They just want to walk in and bring their toothbrush. They really don't want to have problems with figure out what to put where and what to do. And you with skills, with possibility to embrace not only beauty but energy at the same time. I think it's a fantastic collaboration. It's a great project.
Yeah, so that's an exciting thing, and that's a business that we want to start together once we do our own house. And then I have my art, and I have a big, not even going to go into it, but a large scale project that I want to do, that I'm developing, to do with consciousness and awakening. And in terms of design, I also love working with clients, and I want to develop that side of my business, because up until now it's been commercial. Huh?
And right now you work through Zoom?
I work through Zoom, although, you know, in New York, the numbers are down. So I work in person with mask as well here in New York. And I kind of assess with whom and who feels comfortable, and, you know, we keep our distance, we wash our hands, you know. But I love in-person work. It's really hard for me to say no to that, you know. So I love coming into someone's house and rearranging their furniture. And I love when I can go in and in 4 hours, what they have, their house is shifted. The energy is shifted with just their own stuff. That makes me so happy. And I've done that for people. And it's unblocked them in like their creative blocks. I did it with someone's office, and she was like, oh my God, I'm working in a very different way. And that was 3 hours, just redoing a lot, but really focusing in on her office, hanging all the pictures, getting all the clutter, just making beautiful tableaus, beautiful, inspiring vignettes. And the next morning she was like, everything's changed for me.
Wow.
And that
That's
is fun.
fantastic.
I love that. That makes me so happy.
Of course. I know that our viewers who is interested to see your work, they can go on your page. I saw there is a lot of beautiful, inspiring uh, work of yours that presented, and it's really, really beautiful. And if I understand right, they can reach out to you as well if they need any consultations, if they need
Yeah.
to
Yeah. There's
get some advice.
yes, there's a contact page on my website. There's my phone number. My email is on there. So people can reach out to me that way. Yeah, I could
Olga,
work
that's
with anybody through Zoom. It's actually very easy. I've developed a system through COVID of how to work with people through Zoom, and it
excellent.
works. It works. It's a good system.
Olga, thank you so much. It was very inspiring.
My
Thank you.
pleasure.
Have a
Thank
wonderful
you.
day.
Thank you for giving
Everyone,
me the
thank you for
space.
watching. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.